Most men don't become weak overnight. They become weak sentence by sentence. What a man repeatedly says reveals how he thinks, how he reacts, and how much control he truly has over himself. Words are not harmless. They are signals. They expose whether a man governs his mind or is governed by impulse, fear, and excuses. Stoicism has always warned about this. Not because silence is superior to speech, but because undisciplined speech is a symptom of an undisciplined soul. A foolish man believes his problems are outside of him. He talks as if life is unfair, as if others are responsible for his emotions, as if circumstances owe him something. The Stoics saw this as a dangerous illusion. They taught that character is revealed not when things go well, but when resistance appears. And resistance always exposes the same thing first: the language a man uses when reality does not bend to his will. The first thing a stupid man always says is this always happens to me. On the surface, it sounds harmless, almost relatable. But hidden inside this sentence is complete surrender. When a man says this, he is declaring himself a permanent victim of fate. He is not describing reality. He is explaining away responsibility. He turns isolated events into a fixed identity. He stops observing, stops adjusting, and stops learning. From a Stoic perspective, this sentence is poison. Marcus Aurelius warned that events themselves do not harm us, only our judgments about them do. When a man repeats, "This always happens to me," he is locking his judgment into a loop. He assumes patterns without evidence, and more importantly, he assumes helplessness. Once helplessness becomes familiar, effort disappears. A disciplined man does not deny difficulty, but he refuses to dramatize it. He does not say, "This always happens to me." He asks, "What part of this is under my control?" That question changes everything. It transforms experience into data instead of drama. It replaces complaint with curiosity. And curiosity is the beginning of strength. The foolish man prefers the comfort of repetition. Saying, "This always happens to me," protects his ego. If failure is inevitable, then improvement is unnecessary. He avoids the pain of accountability by wrapping himself in inevitability. The Stoics would call this a refusal to live according to reason. A life guided by reason does not exaggerate patterns, it investigates them. Every time a man says this sentence, he weakens his inner authority. He trains his mind to expect defeat before action. Over time, his behavior aligns with his words. He hesitates more. He blames faster. He resents quietly. And resentment is always the companion of powerlessness. Stoicism does not demand optimism. It demands clarity. And clarity begins by eliminating phrases that remove responsibility from your hands. A man who wants strength must stop speaking like someone who has already lost. Because the moment you define yourself as unlucky, life will simply agree with you. The second thing a stupid man always says is, "That's just the way I am." At first, this sentence sounds like self-knowledge. It sounds grounded, almost mature. But in reality, it is one of the most dangerous phrases a man can adopt, because it freezes him exactly where his weaknesses are strongest. It does not describe identity, it defends habit. And habits, when left unexamined, slowly become character. From a Stoic perspective, this sentence represents a refusal to train the self. The Stoics never believed that a man's nature was fixed. They believed that human beings are shaped by repetition. What you practice daily becomes what you default to under pressure. When a man says, "That's just the way I am," he is not being honest. He is declaring that he has stopped practicing improvement. This phrase usually appears at very specific moments. It appears after emotional outbursts, repeated mistakes, broken promises, or patterns that cause harm. A man snaps at others, avoids responsibility, procrastinates, reacts impulsively, or withdraws when challenged. And instead of confronting the behavior, he hides behind identity. He reframes weakness as personality. This is comforting, because it removes the need for effort. Stoicism considers this intellectual laziness. Epictetus taught that progress begins the moment a man stops defending his flaws. Not the moment he understands them, not the moment he explains them, but the moment he refuses to protect them with excuses. Saying, "That's just the way I am," is a shield. It blocks discomfort, but it also blocks growth. There is another danger hidden in this sentence. It lowers standards silently. When a man repeats it, he adjusts expectations downward. He teaches himself, and others, that he should not be expected to regulate his emotions, refine his behavior, or rise above impulse. Over time, this erodes respect. Not because others are cruel, but because consistency and discipline are the foundation of trust. A man who refuses to improve cannot be relied upon. Marcus Aurelius warned himself repeatedly about this trap. He reminded himself that he was not entitled to comfort, ease, or emotional indulgence. He was responsible for acting in accordance with reason, regardless of mood. Stoicism does not ask whether change feels natural. It asks whether it is necessary. And necessity does not wait for comfort. The foolish man confuses self-acceptance with self-abandonment. True acceptance is not saying, "This is who I am, so I won't change." True acceptance is saying, "This is my current state, and I am responsible for refining it." Without that second part, acceptance becomes stagnation. And stagnation, in Stoic philosophy, is a slow form of decay. A disciplined man speaks differently. He does not deny his tendencies, but he does not worship them either. He understands that temperament is raw material, not destiny. Anger, fear, impatience, and desire are inputs, not instructions. When he notices a flaw, he does not label it and move on. He isolates it, studies it, and trains against it. Quietly, repeatedly, without drama. This is why Stoicism emphasizes daily practice. Journaling, reflection, voluntary discomfort, and self-review are not rituals. They are tools for dismantling this exact sentence. They remind the mind that identity is something built through action, not something inherited and defended. Every day, a man is either shaping himself or allowing himself to be shaped by impulse. The man who relies on, "That's just the way I am," also misunderstands freedom. He believes freedom means acting without restraint. The Stoics believed the opposite. Freedom is the ability to restrain yourself. A man who cannot override his habits is not free. He is predictable. And predictability is weakness when life applies pressure. Another subtle effect of this phrase is internal fragmentation. A man knows, deep down, that he is capable of more. But every time he repeats the sentence, he creates a split between what he knows and what he allows. This creates quiet shame, not the loud kind, but the persistent kind that drains confidence over time. The man feels stuck, even though the prison has no visible walls. Stoicism offers a sharper alternative language. Instead of, "That's just the way I am," the disciplined man says, "This is what I'm training to outgrow." That sentence keeps identity fluid and standards high. It acknowledges the present without surrendering the future. It restores momentum. Every time a man removes this phrase from his vocabulary, he reclaims authority over himself. And self-authority is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up as consistency, restraint, and quiet reliability. The kind of strength that does not need to explain itself. A man becomes foolish not because he lacks potential, but because he stops believing he is responsible for developing it. And no sentence signals that surrender more clearly than, "That's just the way I am." Before we continue, support this channel. Like the video, subscribe for more Stoic lessons, and comment below which sentence you've caught yourself saying under pressure. Your comment might be the reminder someone else needs today. The third thing a stupid man always says is, "I can't control how I feel." It sounds honest, even humble. But hidden inside it is a dangerous confusion. The belief that emotion is destiny. The Stoics never argued that emotions will not arise. They knew the body reacts, the mind flares, and fear can surge before you have time to think. What they rejected was the idea that you must obey every feeling as if it were a law. When a man says, "I can't control how I feel," he usually isn't describing emotion. He's describing the absence of training. He's saying, without meaning to, "I have not built the pause. Between what happens and what you do about it, there is a narrow space. In that space lives choice. In that space lives character. When you remove that space, Life becomes a chain reaction, and the loudest emotion becomes your commander. Epictetus called the first wave an impression. An impression is automatic. Someone insults you, and heat rises. You receive bad news, and your stomach tightens. You see rejection, and insecurity wakes up. The impression is not your fault. But your judgment about the impression is your responsibility. The foolish man fuses impression and judgment into one. He feels anger and concludes, I am right to explode. He feels fear and concludes, I must run. He feels desire and concludes, I need it now. Stoicism teaches a different sequence. Feelings rise. You observe them. You name them without worshiping them. You ask, is this reaction accurate? Is it useful? Does it help me act with virtue? Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself for this exact reason. Not to pretend he was above emotion, but to stay above obedience. A disciplined man understands that emotion is information, not instruction. It's weather, not direction. Consider what this sentence does to a man's identity. If he believes he cannot control his feelings, he will eventually stop trying to control his actions. He will excuse impatience, cruelty, avoidance, and cowardice under the banner of, that's just how I felt. And once a man grants his feelings the power to excuse his behavior, he becomes unreliable even to himself. He cannot trust his own promises. He can't build consistent habits. He can't build a stable life. This is why Stoicism is obsessed with discipline. Not discipline as punishment, but discipline as freedom. The man who can pause is free. The man who cannot pause is a slave, even if he calls it authenticity. A slave to irritation. A slave to impulse. A slave to the craving for relief. The stupid man also uses this sentence to avoid responsibility for repair. He hurts someone, then hides behind emotion, I was angry. He breaks a commitment, then hides behind emotion, I was stressed. He speaks disrespectfully, then hides behind emotion, I was just being honest. But the Stoic standard is higher. You are accountable not only for what you did, but for the training you refused that would have prevented it. Now, the crucial point. You cannot control the first spark, but you can control the fuel you pour on it. You can control the stories you repeat. You can control what you practice when life is calm, so that you are not helpless when life becomes loud. A man who says, I can't control how I feel, has usually been practicing the opposite. Rehearsing outrage, feeding anxiety with catastrophic predictions, and rewarding impulsive reactions with temporary relief. One reason this lesson matters is that emotions are contagious and cumulative. A man who doesn't govern his inner state spreads it. He walks into a room already tense, and everyone feels it. He brings home frustration from work and calls it just being in a bad mood, but the mood becomes a weapon. Stoicism treats this as moral responsibility. Not because you must feel pleasant, but because you must not make your lack of discipline someone else's burden. The Stoics also trained ahead of time. They practiced imagining adversity before it arrived, so the mind was not shocked when it did. If you rehearse the possibility of delay, criticism, loss, or rejection, you suffer less surprise. And surprise is what turns a first impression into panic. Add a nightly review. Ask yourself what triggered you today, where you surrendered, and where you held the pause. This is how control is built. Quietly, through repetition. Stoicism offers practical tools. The first is labeling. Instead of I am furious, say anger is present. That small change separates you from the emotion. The second is delay. Tell yourself, I will respond later. Not because time magically fixes everything, but because time restores the pause. The third is perspective. Ask, will this matter in a month? Many emotions lose their authority when measured against time. And the simplest tool is silence as mastery. Breathe, watch, and choose. If you want to test whether you truly believe this, watch your language in small moments. When someone is rude, do you say, they made me mad, or do you say, my reaction is mine to govern? When you feel anxious, do you say, I can't help it, or do you say, anxiety is here, I don't have to obey it? The Stoic goal is not to eliminate emotion. The goal is to eliminate slavery to emotion. Because a man who is ruled by feelings is ruled by the world. People can manipulate him with praise and punish him with disapproval. But a man who builds the pause can walk through the same world and remain intact. So the next time that sentence tries to come out of your mouth, I can't control how I feel, replace it with something stronger, something true. I can't control the first feeling, but I can control what I do next. That is Stoicism. That is adulthood. And that is the beginning of a mind that no longer begs reality to be easier, because it has finally decided to become stronger. The fourth thing a stupid man always says is, I don't care. This sentence is often mistaken for strength. It sounds detached, unbothered, even dominant. But most of the time, it is not indifference. It is avoidance. It is what a man says when he cares deeply but lacks the discipline to confront what caring demands of him. Stoicism values emotional regulation, not emotional denial. When a man says, I don't care, he is rarely describing his inner state accurately. He is protecting himself from discomfort, rejection, effort, or accountability. He is pretending to be above something because engaging with it would require growth. This is not strength. It is retreat disguised as superiority. This phrase often appears after disappointment. A man invests effort, hopes for recognition, or expects a certain outcome. When reality fails to deliver, instead of examining what happened, he withdraws emotionally and declares indifference. He tells himself and others that it no longer matters. But the Stoics would recognize this as a defense mechanism, not a philosophical position. Marcus Aurelius warned against apathy mistaken for wisdom. He reminded himself that his duty was not to withdraw from life, but to participate in it with reason and restraint. To say, I don't care, is to abandon judgment entirely. It shuts down evaluation. And without evaluation, there is no improvement. A foolish man uses this sentence to avoid effort. He stops trying, then claims detachment. He disengages, then calls it peace. But peace that comes from withdrawal is fragile. It depends on avoiding friction. The moment friction returns, and it always does, the calm collapses into resentment. From a Stoic perspective, caring is not the problem. Caring without control is. The disciplined man cares deeply about virtue, effort, and alignment with reason, but he does not attach his worth to outcomes. He does not say, I don't care. He says, I will do my part and accept the result. That distinction is everything. This phrase also damages a man's inner integrity. When he says, I don't care, while secretly caring, he trains himself to lie internally. Over time, this erodes self-trust. He no longer knows when he is being honest or when he is hiding. And a man who cannot be honest with himself cannot govern himself. There is also a social cost. When a man repeatedly claims indifference, others stop trusting his engagement. They sense withdrawal. They sense emotional laziness. Not because he lacks feeling, but because he lacks follow-through. Stoicism teaches that reliability is a moral quality. A man who disengages whenever something becomes uncomfortable is not reliable. He is reactive. The disciplined man replaces, I don't care, with clarity. He asks, is this within my control? If it is, he applies effort. If it is not, he releases attachment. That is Stoic detachment, not pretending not to care, but caring correctly. Directing concern only where action is possible. The foolish man, by contrast, uses indifference as anesthesia. He numbs himself to avoid pain. But numbness dulls everything, not just disappointment. Over time, motivation fades. Purpose weakens. Life feels flat. And then he wonders why nothing excites him anymore. Stoicism warns against this erosion. Seneca wrote that withdrawing from engagement is not tranquility, it is escape. Tranquility comes from order within the soul, not from shrinking one's life to avoid disturbance. A man who refuses to care is not protected, he is diminished. Another danger of this phrase is that it prevents learning. When something goes wrong, saying, I don't care, blocks analysis. It closes the loop too early. The disciplined man stays with discomfort long enough to extract insight. He asks what failed, what could be refined, and what must be accepted. Growth requires staying present, not opting out. A strong man understands that selective caring is power. He does not waste energy on trivial opinions or uncontrollable outcomes, but he invests fully where responsibility exists. This balance cannot be achieved through indifference. It requires judgment, restraint, and courage. When a man removes "I don't care" from his vocabulary, he does not become emotionally exposed, he becomes precise. He learns where to apply effort and where to withdraw attachment without lying to himself. That precision is strength. The stupid man wants peace without discipline. The Stoic wants discipline so that peace becomes inevitable. And that difference is revealed immediately by whether a man hides behind indifference or stands inside responsibility. The fifth thing a stupid man always says is, "It's not my fault." Few sentences weaken a man faster than this one. It may sound defensive, even reasonable at first, but at its core it represents a refusal to stand inside reality. The Stoics considered responsibility the foundation of inner strength. The moment a man begins searching for someone or something else to blame, he steps out of that foundation. This phrase usually appears the moment consequences arrive. A plan fails, a relationship breaks, an opportunity is lost, or a promise collapses. Instead of asking what he misjudged, what he neglected, or what he failed to prepare for, the foolish man looks outward. Circumstances become the villain. Other people become obstacles. Bad luck becomes the explanation. And with that shift, learning ends. Stoicism draws a sharp line between what happens and how we respond to what happens. Events themselves are morally neutral. They do not accuse or excuse anyone. Responsibility begins the instant you ask, "What part of this was under my control?" The stupid man never asks that question. He asks, "Who caused this?" And that question, while emotionally satisfying, is useless for growth. Saying, "It's not my fault," protects the ego in the short term, but it destroys leverage in the long term. If nothing is your fault, then nothing is your responsibility to correct. Improvement becomes impossible. Power evaporates. You may feel innocent, but you also become helpless. The Stoics saw helplessness not as a tragedy, but as a choice repeated until it feels natural. A disciplined man understands something uncomfortable. Responsibility does not require guilt. It requires ownership. You can own an outcome without shaming yourself. You can acknowledge misjudgment without collapsing into self-hatred. Stoicism teaches this balance precisely because extremes are dangerous. Blame weakens, but so does self-contempt. Ownership strengthens. This sentence also distorts a man's perception of control. He begins to believe that life happens to him rather than through him. He waits for better conditions, better people, or better timing before acting differently. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the obstacle itself becomes the way. Every difficulty contains instruction, if the mind is willing to receive it. When a man repeatedly avoids responsibility, he becomes reactive instead of strategic. He is always responding to damage instead of preventing it. He fixes symptoms, not causes. Over time, patterns repeat. The same failures show up wearing different masks. And he tells himself the same sentence again, "It's not my fault." But repetition does not turn a lie into truth. There is also a moral dimension to this phrase. Stoicism views integrity as alignment between words, actions, and values. A man who refuses responsibility fractures that alignment. He wants the benefits of effort without the weight of accountability. He wants respect without reliability. He wants progress without discipline. This imbalance creates quiet frustration that no amount of blame can resolve. A strong man replaces this sentence with a harder one. What could I have done differently? That question restores agency immediately. It does not mean everything was his fault. It means something was his responsibility. Even if the situation was unfair, incomplete preparation, emotional reactions, or delayed decisions often played a role. Owning that role is how strength is built. Stoicism also teaches that taking responsibility does not mean controlling everything. It means controlling what belongs to you. Your preparation, your judgment, your response, and your character. The foolish man demands control over outcomes. The disciplined man commits to control over conduct. That difference determines whether setbacks become lessons or lifelong resentments. Another hidden cost of this phrase is erosion of trust. When a man never owns mistakes, others stop believing his promises. Not because they are cruel, but because consistency is impossible without accountability. Stoicism considers trust a byproduct of character, not persuasion. You do not argue people into trusting you. You demonstrate it through ownership. The foolish man believes responsibility is a burden. The Stoic knows it is freedom. The moment you stop blaming, you gain leverage. You can change strategy. You can refine habits. You can train weaknesses. Blame offers emotional relief. Responsibility offers results. This is why Stoic practice includes daily review. At the end of the day, the disciplined man asks where he failed to act according to reason. Not to punish himself, but to adjust. Without this habit, "it's not my fault" becomes automatic. With it, accountability becomes normal. A man becomes strong the moment he stops asking whether something was his fault and starts asking whether it is his responsibility to address it. Life becomes manageable when excuses disappear. The stupid man waits for fairness. The Stoic trains for reality. And reality does not care who is at fault. It responds only to who is prepared. Throughout this video, one pattern should now be clear. A foolish man does not collapse because life is difficult. He collapses because of the language he uses when difficulty appears. Words are not decorations. They are habits. And habits quietly shape destiny. Every sentence we explored carries the same root problem: avoidance of responsibility for the inner world. Whether it is blaming fate, hiding behind identity, surrendering to emotion, pretending indifference, or refusing ownership, the result is the same. The man slowly gives up his authority over himself. And once that authority is gone, no external success can compensate for it. Stoicism never promised comfort. It promised clarity. And clarity can feel uncomfortable at first, because it removes excuses. It removes the illusion that someone else is responsible for your reactions, your discipline, or your character. But once those illusions disappear, something powerful replaces them: control. Not control over people. Not control over outcomes. Control over yourself. A disciplined man does not speak carelessly. He knows that repeated language becomes internal law. If you tell yourself long enough that you are unlucky, weak, emotional, detached, or innocent of every failure, your behavior will align with those claims. The mind always works to stay consistent with the story it tells itself. This is why the Stoics treated philosophy as daily training, not intellectual entertainment. They knew that knowledge without application is useless. Insight without repetition fades. The work is not understanding these ideas once. It is catching yourself in the moment when the old sentence tries to come out of your mouth and choosing a better one instead. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up when no one is watching. When frustration rises and you pause. When blame feels tempting and you choose responsibility. When emotion surges and you refuse to obey it blindly. When detachment feels easier than effort and you stay present anyway. The foolish man wants relief. The Stoic wants mastery. Relief is temporary and addictive. Mastery is slow and permanent. One weakens you over time. The other builds a foundation nothing external can shake. This is not about becoming perfect. Stoicism never demanded perfection. It demanded progress, daily correction, daily refinement, the willingness to look at yourself honestly without self-hatred and without self-deception. That balance is rare. And that rarity is why disciplined men stand out without trying. If there is one takeaway from this entire reflection, it is this: your power returns the moment you change your language. Not because words are magical, but because they guide attention. And attention guides behavior. And behavior, repeated long enough, becomes character. So pay attention to what you say when things go wrong. Pay attention to the phrases you use to explain yourself. Those phrases are not harmless. They are instructions. Either instructions for strength, or instructions for weakness. The Stoics believed that life tests everyone. The difference is not who is tested, it is who trains before the test arrives. A man who trains his speech trains his mind. And a trained mind does not panic, blame, or collapse. It adapts. It endures. It leads. If this reflection helped you see your own patterns more clearly, support the channel by liking this video. It helps this message reach men who need it. Subscribe if you want more Stoic lessons focused on discipline, self-mastery, and inner strength. Share this video with someone who is stuck in the same mental loops and doesn't realize it yet. And comment below, which sentence are you committing to remove from your life starting today? Your answer might be the clarity someone else needs to begin changing theirs.